Well, another thing that seems like these fringe right are not calling out are all these mass shootings. You hear thoughts and prayers all the time, and I'm so sick of it. I'm so sick of having to talk about all these mass shootings, especially over the course of the last month. And the guy we have with us on the line, I know he agrees with me on this. I've spoken with him on multiple times. He's such a great man, such a wonderful family. Sadly, he lost his daughter in the Parkland shooting, and he has been a gun safety advocate. He has helped so many other victims have to deal with these terrible tragedies, and it's certainly an honor and a privilege to have Fred Guttenberg on the line with us right now. Fred, it's good to see you. I appreciate you coming on. How are you?
Good, Brian. Hey, doing doing okay. It's the trial is over.
Yeah.
That's behind us, and the election is over. Democracy survived, and we all move on to continue our fight.
Yes, and you've done such a wonderful job, you and your family, in doing so. I thought the remarks you made in that courtroom were emotional. I got emotional just listening to you and you praising the judge. And I don't want to talk about the shooter. I know you don't want to do that.
Nope.
And I don't want to talk about that either. But moving forward now, when you see what is going on, the mass carnage in this country, I was talking about the shooting in Colorado, right? Attack on the LGBT community. We talk about the Walmart shooting, and things aren't improving. I mean, we're seeing more and more of these mass shootings. Why, Fred? Why?
So I'm going to kind of do a dividing line between April of 22 going forward and April of 22 looking back. And the reason for that is in April of 22, we did pass legislation. It wasn't everything we could have done, but it was significant. And the legislation that we passed will ultimately play a role in starting to bend the curve on that gun violence death rate. However, we are still stuck in the reality that over the years of COVID, we went from 300 million weapons on the streets of America to over 400 million plus ghost guns. And a reality is we are seeing the consequences of that now. There's no way around it. We are starting to bend the curve. I have confidence the legislation we passed will play a role, but wow, we have a lot of work to do.
Fred, I remember days after the Parkland shooting, you asked Marco Rubio about changing the age, moving the age from 18 to 21 to buy these firearms. It's fair to say, Fred, Marco Rubio, he lied to you, right? He lied to your face. Here you are, somebody who lost your daughter, your beautiful daughter, and he lied to you, right?
Listen, Marco lies. It's what he does. And he lied to me then. If anyone watched his debate with Val Demings just about a month and a half ago, he actually lied during that debate over what he has previously said and supported, because he claimed to have supported things that the current president doesn't support. And yet it was part of the Make America Safer Act legislation that was passed in April. It's what Marco does. He should have been defeated. Florida got caught up in this bubble. Marco wasn't defeated. But Marco is somebody who I will continue to call out because he's not good for the country or for my state.
As do I, Fred. I do it with these people every single day. Joe Biden stated that he'll push to renew this ban on semi-automatic assault style rifles. Yeah. Do you think it'll pass?
No. The reality is you would need 60 votes in the Senate, and they're just not there. But do I think the vote should happen? I do. I think it's okay for America to see the debate in the Senate and see where senators stand. In 2 years, there will be another election. And here's a reality, Brian. If you look back on the past 3 elections, it's been slow, but it's been steady. We keep on electing more gun safety champions. And let's put it on the record. Let's put it up for a vote. And in 24, let's give Americans another chance to add those few additional senators and congressmen that we will need to get it done.
After the Uvalde shooting, I've had many people on the show talking about the Uvalde shooting. You had people like Ted Cruz saying that we need to harden our schools, as if a door locked in the back of a school would have stopped this madman from going in there and killing innocent people. I mean, what do you make of some of these politicians like Governor Abbott who say, well, we need to harden our schools. We need to give these kindergarten teachers all guns. Their answer, Fred, as you know, is more guns, not less guns, right?
No, I know. Listen, they have blood on their hands. That's what I think of them. They have made the decisions that have put us in this place where we are, where we now deal with on a daily basis gun violence as a reality in our children's lives. And so what we saw in Uvalde, and I apologize if you hear my dogs in the background.
No problem.
What we saw in Uvalde was a reality where law enforcement knew they were outgunned and wouldn't even go after the shooter. Hardening the schools won't stop a determined shooter. It just may make the determined shooter move outside the perimeter of the school. But a determined shooter who has easy access to guns and who wants to kill is going to. The issue was, and the issue will continue to be access to those weapons to people who intend harm.
So, Fred, I think the age should be 18 to 21. And the argument I hear from people are, well, what about our military? And I say, well, if you're in the military, you have to be trained how to use those weapons. I believe if they want to keep the age to 18, and I'm talking about the majority of Republicans, why not force people to learn how to shoot a weapon? There's no training. Like if you get a driver's license, right, you got to learn how to drive a car. You got to re-register your car. But when it comes to guns, I don't have to know anything about a gun. If there is a shooter in an active shooter situation, wouldn't you want a good Samaritan to have some gun training? I don't understand. To me, this is so logical.
Listen, the age should be 21, full stop. The military does allow 18-year-olds access to weapons. However, the military is not the streets of America. It is a controlled environment with training, with a requirement that when weapons are not in use, they are locked up.
Yeah.
It's a really different scenario. So there's, a reality that kids not in the military, in our schools, who are going through emotional things, who are not fully mentally capable of dealing with some of those emotional things, and who have access to weapons where it's not a controlled environment, have a very easy path to causing harm. Our streets are not the military. There's a reason why those same kids we don't allow to drink until they're 21, because the law understands that fact in that case when it comes to alcohol, but not guns.
Yeah. If you're just joining us, we're speaking with Fred Guttenberg, who is obviously a gun safety advocate, helps sadly, so many other victims of gun violence. So, Fred, I want to talk a little bit on the political scale, the national scale. You're an opinionated guy. You're a great follow on social media as well. You're Jewish, as am I, right?
Yeah.
And I'm sure you would agree with me that the comments that Kanye West has made over the course of the last few months are repugnant, disgusting, and I believe dangerous. What does it say about the GOP? And I think you tweeted about this today.
Yeah.
The House Judiciary GOP official Twitter account, which I believe is run by a few people, including Jim Jordan.
Correct.
They kept this tweet up, right, Fred, that said
Since
Kanye,
October 6th.
Yeah, since October 6th, Kanye, Elon, Trump, and they only deleted it in the last 48 hours. What does that say about these people?
So they kept it up when the behavior was clearly anti-Semitic. They kept it up. They only deleted it when Kanye went the full Hitler conversation on them. And that's when they deleted it. So what does it say about them? It tells me they're okay with the anti-Semitism. It tells me that's who they are. It tells me that they see political capital in aligning with anti-Semitic people, as long as you don't go all the way to Hitler. That's where or Nazism. That's where they draw a line.
Yeah.
Okay. So, listen, it tells me exactly who they are, which I think we already all knew. I'm actually surprised that they even bothered to delete it yesterday and to bring the attention back to it. because those of us who had seen that tweet in the past had been calling it out. But like I said, talking about Hitler in terms where he wasn't such a bad guy, I guess they couldn't run from it anymore.
You know, Fred, Barack Obama on Thanksgiving, he served dinner to some people that were homeless in soup kitchens. Joe Biden, as you know, served Thanksgiving dinners to our brave men and women in uniform. Donald Trump served Thanksgiving dinner to a known white supremacist denier and Kanye West. I mean, what does that say? Donald Trump is still the face of the Republican Party. Why are there not more people calling this out?
I think you're asking the wrong question. I think we have to start saying, actually, who cares? And I think we need to start acknowledging the Republican Party has become what Donald Trump wanted them to, and look at America as those who still support democracy and those who don't. And there's a reason why I have become such close friends with former Congressman Joe Walsh, one of the original Tea Partiers. But he's a guy who gets it. He's a guy who loves the country and will fight for democracy, and goes around now telling everybody his former party is gone. Vote for Democrats. We need to find a way to a second party again, but it's not the one that he once belonged to. I think we need to stop paying attention to every single thing that Donald Trump does, because I'm at a point where I don't care. Donald Trump is going to face criminal charges. Donald Trump does not have a real campaign for the presidency. It was simply an effort to try and push DOJ, which, by the way, it did, just not the way he had hoped. And Donald Trump is not the future of America. He is not the future of the Republican Party. I look forward to when he has to spend his time in a courtroom or worse.
And Fred, you know, you mentioned Joe Walsh. He's a friend of the show. He comes on this show pretty much every week. I love Joe Walsh for a lot of reasons, but he admits that he was wrong with his support of Donald Trump. He admits that at one point he was part of the problem. And now I think he's the solution, and he just makes so much sense. Let me ask you about 2024, if I may. Do you think Joe Biden should run again?
I think Joe Biden should decide that. You know, I love him. And, you know, both, you know, because of what he has meant to me on a personal level, but also I think because of the work he's done to help our country. And I look at everybody telling Joe Biden what they think Joe Biden should do. And I can't wait to hear from Joe Biden what Joe Biden thinks he should do, because that's who has to make that decision.
Okay, so let's assume for a moment, and it's a big assumption. Let's say Joe Biden doesn't run. You have access to most of these politicians, and so you're the perfect person, I think, to ask this. Name me some of the Democrats that you would definitely support if they decided to run in 2024. Some up-and-comers that you think could beat a Ron DeSantis or Donald Trump. Who would those people be?
Well, I don't think Ron DeSantis is the future of the party either. He plays well. He locked up Florida. He won't play on the national stage. And I think you're seeing the reporting this week talking about what I've been saying for a while, which is he doesn't perform well on a national stage. He's weird, and he doesn't connect with people. So he's not the future of that party. Who it is, I still don't know. As for the Democrats, there is any number of amazing governors, whether you look at my friend Phil Murphy in New Jersey, or you go to California, or my friend Josh Shapiro, who just got elected in Pennsylvania, but he is and he is my freaking hero. I
love that guy.
Yeah, you can go to Gretchen Whitmer in Michigan. You know, you have any number of Illinois. You know, he's doing a great job, and the best political speech I've ever seen was given by him. Mm-hmm. You know, there's any number of great governors that are ready to step up and run. And in the Senate and the House, listen, whether or not you'll see some of them run, there are choices there too. I think the Democratic Party has tremendous talent.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with you. No question. What do you make of the fact that not one election denier won Secretary of State? There were some election deniers that won, but not for Secretary of State. Carrie Lake lost, which I think is a huge win for the country. I don't even think Hobbs was a great candidate, but the fact that Carrie Lake lost, right? And, she's still trying to say she's in the fight. What does that say right now? Do you think these election deniers and even moderate Republicans and independents are just kind of getting sick of it at this point?
You know what I think? I think the Republican Party, as it's constituted today, and those election deniers had this assumption about America that was wrong. And their assumption was Americans aren't bright. And their assumption was Americans will buy into hate and anger if we tell them to, because they're not bright. They don't know enough. And I think America is better than that. And America voted, and I think America showed them that they were wrong, and that Americans still love democracy. They still love our rights to vote, and they still love what this country has and continues to stand for.
Agree. So, Fred, when I'm an independent, but I lean to the left on a lot of social issues, and I don't have much in common with Republicans these days. But if somebody asks me, what do Democrats stand for? Usually I have a pretty good answer. Equality, rights for people in the LGBT community, gun control, of course, that's another one. Helping the poor, helping the needy. For the most part, that's what Democrats stand for, right? Taxing the rich, I guess that's another one. I don't know what Republicans stand for in 2022. I could have answered that question under the Bush.
You left out the biggest one in this election.
What's that?
Democracy.
Yes.
Democrats stand for democracy.
Yes, you're 100% right. But I don't know what Republicans stand for today. They say they stand for freedom and freedom of speech. I don't know what they stand for.
They stand for hate. They stand for autocracy. They stand for things that aren't what America is or who Americans are. And that is why this last election didn't work out the way they hoped. And you know what? I get it. House of Representatives went the other way because of gerrymandering. And now you'll have the lunatics running the asylum over there, and America will see it.
Yeah.
And it won't be pretty, and they won't like it.
Fred, a couple more quick questions for you. I really do appreciate your time. I want to ask you this question just as a basic question throughout this country, not just what took place in Parkland. What does somebody have to do in order to get the death penalty? I don't understand it. You can take 20 lives, 40 lives. What does it take to get the death penalty? In Texas, right? You kill a police officer, reprehensible. I support the death penalty there, but you kill one police officer, you kill all these innocent kids, and you don't get the death penalty. Why even have the death penalty on the table if you're not going to enforce it and put it down into law?
Well, it's a great question, and the answer is different depending on where you are in the country. Now, in Florida, it required a unanimous verdict. That isn't the same everywhere. Had it not been a unanimous requirement here, the death penalty would have been given to the person who killed my daughter. But then that gets to other questions. Is the death penalty really a worse punishment? Mm-hmm. Because, since the verdict, we've had a chance to really spend time with some of the folks in Department of Corrections and understand what it is. And, the folks on death row have it better than other prisoners in prison because their ultimate punishment is seen as the inevitability of death, which, by the way, could take, on average of 25 years. Yeah. But their prison cells come with a television in Florida. They get a tablet, so is it even a worse punishment in many cases? And in many cases, it's not. So there's a lot to be talked about there. Listen, the person who killed my daughter, the monster, he didn't get the death penalty, but he was sentenced to hell on earth. And I'll never think about him again until I hear the prisoners took care of it.
Yeah.
But until that day, he is in hell on earth.
Yes, that's where he belongs. Quick question about some of these defense attorneys in this case. I was, as you were, I would imagine, extremely frustrated and angry at the behavior of some of these defense attorneys. It was reprehensible and disgusting. They are disgusting. And you talked about that in the words in court when you had an opportunity to speak with your loved wife. I mean, looking back on that, how can these people even be practicing law, and how could they look in the mirror the way they treated you and your families? How do they not even go up to you and say, gosh, I'm so sorry that this happened. We have a job to do. but I can't imagine the pain and suffering you guys are going through. Would that have been too much to say that to you guys? I mean, I don't
Well,
understand.
no, it wouldn't have. And here's the thing. I get it. They do have a job to do. I have no issue with the fact that this is their job and that's what the law requires. Do your job. But nowhere was there a requirement they give up their humanity and treat us like an enemy. But that's what they did. And they've done it for years now. And what was amazing is my family and the other families, we all remained completely silent for years because we didn't want to influence anything in this trial. But when it was over, we were able to be honest. And boy, they didn't like it. And to this day, they're still complaining and doing interviews, talking about how they have it worse than we did. And it's like they're really pathetic, bad people.
How can you make a statement like that? You lost your daughter. Many of the other parents lost loved ones, lost their children. I don't know how you can ever make a statement like that, but let's try to. I want to end this interview on some positives, if we may.
Yeah.
I want to talk about Paws of Love, and I want to talk about the charitable work that you are doing in the name of your daughter, your lovely daughter, Jamie. If we can talk about that, talk to me about some of these charities you have set up.
Yeah.
About your, the name of your daughter and how people can get involved and help.
So our foundation is called Orange Ribbons for Jamie. And we set that up to honor what Jamie's life meant when she was here and the things that she valued and loved when she was alive and to keep her memory alive. Through our foundation, we're starting this new initiative called Paws of Love. And the reason why we did it, my wife and I have spent a lot of time thinking, we want to do something with our foundation that is so pure Jamie, who loved her dogs, and can be so everlasting on a bigger scale for a longer period of time. And at some point during the trial, we were sitting on the couch with our two dogs, one of which was 4 months old when Jamie was killed. Mm-hmm. We are a dog-obsessed family. And my wife just looked at me. She goes, I want to give dogs to families affected by gun violence. That's what I want to do. And immediately I said, I love that because I can tell you, Brian, our dogs saved my family after the shooting happened. I mean, without those dogs in our house, I'm not sure that we make it. And so we've set up Paws of Love, and we're giving out emotional support dogs to families affected by gun violence across the country. They have to apply, but not just the dog, the entire first year. So the crate, the food, the veterinary, the grooming, the leashes, the bowls, the toys, and the whole first year. And I hope that we help families with this the way our dogs helped us.
There's something about animals, and particularly dogs. They know when a human being is sick or when they're depressed. I'm telling you, there's something about that power between a dog and a human being. I've dealt with that myself. I have to ask you this last question. I might have asked you this before. Sure. Is there any chance one day that Fred Guttenberg will run for office? Because you would be the first person on my list that I would vote for as a policymaker and lawmaker. Is there any chance that could happen with you?
It's not. Listen, I think you probably know one of my closest friends is now former Congressman Ted Deutsch.
Right.
And that opportunity was there. And I actually encouraged another close friend of mine to do it, and he won, Jared Moskowitz. Listen, had this maybe happened in my life 10, 15, 20 years ago, I'd have a different philosophy on it. I'm not eager to start becoming a political fundraiser and to start moderating the things I say. I mean, you said earlier on in this interview, I'm very opinionated. I want to stay that way. I don't want to moderate it.
I understand. Well, let me say this, Fred, in closing. I probably get emotional when I say this, but the strength that your family has and what you've done in the name of, you know, your daughter losing her life is, I get emotional when I think about people like you and the good that you are doing, and how strong you and your family are. I mean, it gets me choked up now just thinking about it, the pain and the suffering that you and all those families have gone through, and what you've taken that pain and turned it into positive. I know for sure, and I'm sure you know this, how proud your daughter would be of her father. And I thank you for what you do. I hope one day when you come out here to Vegas, I'd love to meet you in person. But I just want to thank you for
It'll
all that
happen.
you do. I want to thank you for all that you do, my man, because you're saving lives, you're helping victims, and keep up the good work, my friend. That's all I could say, man, because you're a hero, and your family and your lovely wife, your entire family, and I wish you guys the best. And I do appreciate you coming on, and hope to have you again down the road. Thank you so much, Fred, for what you
Thanks,
do.
Brian. Take
Appreciate that.
care.
Thank
Bye.
you. That is Fred Guttenberg. He's a hero. I mean that. This guy is a hero. And he's a modest guy. He won't say that, but he is.